and welcome to my channel where I make dishes inspired by some of my favorite video game characters. Today's dish is inspired by Kaine from the Nier series. The Nier series is known for having some amazing characters and character designs, and Kaine is surely a standout. Her outfit is incredibly revealing yet beautiful, and one thing I love is that it's never really mentioned in-game. No one makes any rude remarks about it to her, which is so refreshing. I remember seeing it and loving the design but thinking, this must only be here for fan service. And when I looked into it, I adored how there actually was some lore reasoning behind it. Kaine has a pretty sad past, but she definitely doesn't let it get her down. She's become an incredibly independent and strong woman who's able to take on anyone or anything that comes her way, sometimes to a fault. She's learned to put up a hard and cold exterior due to being pretty much outcast by her home, but it's very fulfilling as a player to see her walls come down around Nier, Weiss, and Emil. She's not only known for her amazing design, but her colorful language throughout the story. And not only is she beautiful, tough, and kind-hearted, but she has an amazing theme song to boot. Her theme song was actually the song used for my first dance of my wedding. It's that beautiful. In so many different ways, it's hard to forget about Kaine once you're introduced to her, so just add her to the list of the amazing characters to come out of the Nier series. When thinking of a food for Kaine, there's one scene that comes to mind. In the Forest of Myth, Nier and Weiss stumble upon some poisonous berries, and Kaine spots them. She says she's starving and wants them, and even though Weiss starts yelling at her that she's crazy and she can't eat them, she pops them into her mouth. Not only is she unaffected by the poison, but she thinks they're delicious. In case you think they're actually safe to eat, Nier ends up trying one and immediately collapses. A villager rushes over and says they're deadly and forces him to drink an antidote. All the while, Kaine is completely fine and wants more. Nier still feels like he was ran over by a truck afterwards, and Kaine feels like she's never been better. And naturally, Weiss has to say that this hussy's internal organs are as filthy as her mouth. So, of course, I wanted to make something with berries, but obviously ours won't be poisonous. I feel like Kaine would really appreciate handheld foods just like Nier because then they're easier to eat while on the go, and I also get this feeling that her beloved grandmother used to make amazing pies, because don't all grandmothers? With all of that in mind, I decided on some poison, mixed berry hand pies that are to die for, and they might just leave Kaine speechless for once. Here's what you'll need to make your own. For the pastry dough, you'll need all-purpose flour, salt, baking powder, 2 sticks of cold unsalted butter, and cold sour cream. Of course, if you'd rather just use pre-made pie crust to make the process easier, you can definitely use that instead. For the mixed berry filling, you'll need frozen mixed berries, cornstarch, granulated sugar, salt, and lemon juice. And for topping the hand pies, you'll need 1 egg and coarse sugar, such as turbinado sugar. We'll start everything by making the pastry dough. We'll grab a medium bowl and add in 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. We'll quickly whisk the 3 together and then we'll add in our 2 sticks of cold unsalted butter. Use a pastry cutter or fork to work the butter into the flour until it forms a crumbly mixture with pea-sized crumbs. This can take a bit of muscling through the cold butter, so channel your inner Kaine strength. Once the mixture has formed these pea-sized crumbs, we'll add in a 1/2 cup of our cold sour cream. Again, use a pastry cutter or fork to stir and work together until the dough is starting to form into larger clumps. You can then lightly flour a working surface and turn the dough out on top. We'll bring the dough together with a few kneads and pats. It will likely still be a tiny bit crumbly in areas. Pat the dough into a bit of a log shape and then use a rolling pin to roll the dough out into a rectangular shape that is about 8 by 10 inches. Once the rectangle is ready, dust both sides with some flour and then fold the rectangle in thirds like you're folding a letter. Once folded, flip the dough upside down and turn it 90 degrees. You'll then roll the dough out again with a rolling pin into another 8 by 10 rectangle. Perform the letter fold one more time and then wrap the folded dough in plastic wrap. Place the dough into the fridge to chill for at least 30 minutes before using. We can then switch gears over to our fruity filling. Grab a medium saucepan and add in 2 cups of your frozen mixed berries. In a separate small bowl, add in 2.5 tablespoons of cornstarch and a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. Whisk the two until they are well mixed, then pour on top of the frozen berries. We'll then sprinkle in an 1/8 teaspoon of salt and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice and mix until the berries are well coated. We'll start heating the saucepan on medium-high heat, stirring occasionally until the mixture starts to come to a simmer. As it starts simmering, lower the heat to medium and continue cooking and stirring frequently until the mixture is nice and thick, which should take about 5 minutes. We can then remove the pan from the heat and transfer the filling to a heat-safe bowl to cool down to room temperature. Now once our pastry dough is done, or almost done chilling, we can start preheating our oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit and lining a baking sheet with some parchment paper. We'll grab the pastry dough out of the fridge and use a rolling pin to roll it out into a large square that is about 14 by 14 inches large. You don't have to do this, but if you want all of your pies to be a little neater, you can trim off the edges to have nice clean lines. Once your large square is ready, you'll cut your large square into 16 smaller even squares. The squares will be about 3.5 inches wide, but of course, this doesn't need to be exact. Once your 16 squares are cut out, you'll divide the filling between 8 of the squares, using about a little more than a tablespoon in each. Your other 8 squares will be your vented squares, so take a knife and cut 5 small slits into the center of each square, preferably in the shape of a star or lunar tear. It's then time to assemble the pies. Beat an egg and then brush the beaten egg onto the edges of the 8 filled squares. Take a vented square and place it on top of a filled square, then use a fork to press along the edges and seal the pie. Repeat this process with all 8 hand pies and then transfer the hand pies to your prepared baking sheet. Use your remaining beaten egg to brush the egg wash onto the surfaces of the hand pies and sprinkle all hand pies with your coarse sugar. We can then slide the baking sheet into the oven to bake for around 18 to 20 minutes until the pies have become a nice light golden brown, and then we'll remove the pies from the oven. Transfer the hand pies to a wire rack to cool and allow them to cool for at least 20 minutes before enjoying. These hand pies are just so perfectly portable and adorable. The pastry crust is wonderfully buttery and flaky with a perfect little hint of saltiness as well. They look so sweet and cute, and they are a perfect little serving size to snack on without feeling too guilty afterwards. The filling inside has this wonderful tanginess to it that is very satisfying, and if you're looking to take this to the next level, you could always serve the pies warm and a la mode with some ice cream. Of course, you can also customize the filling to be any pie filling of your choice. Taking a bite of one of these hand pies would mentally take Kaine to such a happy place. She could see her grandmother smiling at her, and she would have her lunar tear necklace by her side. I imagine that Kaine is not much of a baker herself, so Emil would get the idea to make these for her after he learned of her interesting tastes in the Forest of Myth. He had heard her talk lovingly about her grandma's pies she used to make, so one camp night he would throw these together for her with some of the berries he had secretly pocketed. Of course, the only one who could eat them was Kaine, so she'd be so pumped that she had them all to herself. She'd feel so happy that Emil would think of her in such a kind and thoughtful way, and she'd maybe even tear up once she saw them. Weiss would tease her like he always does, but for a moment as she savored the taste, she'd have no witty remarks to counter with. She'd just have a gentle smile on her face. The recipe card is in the video description if you'd like a more quick and concise version to give it a try. Like if you want a bite, subscribe for more geeky treats, and comment what foods Kaine reminds you of. Thanks for following along.